World 1-1, let's do this.
It's been a while. Exactly.
I was about to say I expect perfection, and then that happened.
It's been a while.
It's been
more than a week since I played Mario Brothers.
Thank you.
That and the Xbox controllers really.
You mean the NES controller,
right?
That we're connected to,
right?
There is nothing else happening here.
I mean, the Xbox style controller that's clearly the Switch Pro controller. That's the words I'm looking for, is Pro controller. I remember, well, you never, it took you, it was a while before you got into video games.
Very much so. So I was essentially playing NES games for the first time when everybody else had moved on to Super Nintendo.
Oh, see, I had an NES.
You got 3 fireworks on that one.
Yeah, I just realized we also didn't introduce ourselves.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, you know. So everybody, my name is Brian.
And I'm Rob.
That's Rob. We are 2 guys who've known each other since 1997.
Yeah, that's 8th grade, right?
Yeah, 8th grade, which for most of you out there, 1997 was a year.
Yeah.
And people did live back then.
Yeah, we grew up in the age before. I mean, AIM was our social media.
Yeah, when we were in high school, yeah.
Yeah, AIM was the social media, live journals, etc.
And if anybody's wondering why are we playing Super Mario Brothers, it's not very original. For episode 1, or the first group of episodes, we are going to be playing what is essentially my first video game, which happens to be Super Mario Brothers 1, and then we'll end up moving on to Super Mario Brothers 2, which coincidentally...
Which would take me about 15 minutes.
Yeah, right. Which coincidentally happens to be Rob's first real video game.
Well, I wouldn't say real video game. I'd say my first actual, like, oh my god, this is it. This is absolutely for me video game.
Gotcha.
Because, well, I like the Mario Brothers. I like the arcade version, and I liked Super Mario Brothers. Just that weirdness of Mario 2 was incredible in my mind.
Oh, sure. You just got chomped, boy.
I did, but I should be alright.
Yeah, this was the game for me. I know Rob and I, obviously being close friends, talk all the time, so I'm going to try and bring you all into our conversations as well. I had said to Rob that when I was young, I hadn't had video games of my own, but I had friends and family who did. And it always bothered me that they never wanted to play their video games. And this was the one I feel like I saw the most of. And so this was, for me, the one that I have got to play this. This looks amazing to me. This looks so much fun. How could people not want to do this all the time? And that's what drove me to make this sort of my first game that was about me. I have to admit something, though.
Okay.
I don't know if we had the manual for this. And the manual, of course, tells the story about who Mario is, what's going on in this kingdom, and it also tells you the really weird fact of the coins and the blocks are the citizens of the Mushroom Kingdom.
Oh, yeah, they got turned to bricks.
Right, exactly. But I don't think I had seen the manual. And so I kind of thought my wonderful genius creative brain, the best it could come up with what was happening in this game was this Mario guy who I knew somehow was a plumber. This is his commute home from work. That's the best my brain could come up with. This is what he had to do to get home, which meant I had to specifically ignore the only real context clue in this game, which is Mario, your princess is in another castle.
Well, and not only it's not only just like the bricks that you're smashing, like the other stuff was turned into toads too. Because they talk about the, I think they're horsetail plants and whatnot that are in the background.
Okay.
Like for some reason, like there was just an obscene amount of magic. I don't know how, that he turned all the toads into all like the bricks and the horsetail plants and everything else that you see. It's such a bonkers. Oh, I forgot about this.
Oh yeah.
It's such a bonkers story to Mario, and then like what always I thought was funny was later in other Mario games. It's like, well, if it was so crappy when you went there the first time, like what's to stop him from doing it again?
Right.
Oh, forgot. It's like, what's to stop him from doing it again? He clearly has an issue, and I mean, back in the day. God.
Nice move.
Oh, I died. Man.
Poor move.
Man.
Mario giveth and Mario taketh away.
Yeah, I really was under the impression,
Uh-huh.
Nope.
Telling you, man, this is his commute.
Yeah. Well, the bad thing is like, I was under the impression because, like, well, I have this at home. I do. Right. I have this at home. Grab this. I missed it.
Yeah, you want to do that with the real Super Mario 2, avoid the certain mushrooms, but not the ones here.
Yes. Mario 2, the game you could pick up stuff in.
Correct.
But like to sit there and I think I'd have to echo something I heard Jeff Gerstmann say before, was like, yeah, it's cool to have the hardware the original hardware, but nowadays you have so many ways of playing whatever it is.
Yes.
But the bad thing is like you. Oh, I thought I'd make that jump. Wasn't fast
I thought you
enough.
had just enough of momentum.
Oh, I forgot the button combination.
And we should mention, for those who don't know who Jeff Gerstmann is, we are referring to Jeff Gerstmann, formerly of GameSpot, and many other publications, to be honest, who went on to found Giant Bomb, and he's now currently doing the Jeff Gerstmann Show through YouTube and similar places, sort of on his own venture now. Yeah, I recall him saying that as well, and I do agree 100%. You mentioned when we were just messing around trying to get everything set up to start this. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our very first episode, so it's going to be the worst sounding because I don't know what I'm doing. But you had said the D-pad doesn't feel great, and that's probably because nowadays D-pads are usually a way of fast sub-menu tasking, essentially, rather than actually controlling movement on the screen.
Yeah, and when you're playing games like this, or even newer games that are just side-scrollers, sometimes, that aren't one of those side-scrollers to where you're using multi-directional shooting.
Right.
Like, just the D-pad just feels better.
But real fast, I'm gonna put a challenge on you here.
Okay.
No warping. Let's see all of the Mushroom Kingdom.
Oh man.
All the parts that we forget because we're always warping past them. But you were saying?
That back in the day, we had just the D-pad, directional pad for the controller.
Right.
But nowadays, sometimes even these indie studios, like one of my favorite indie games of all time, Shovel Knight, still feels great with a D-pad, and that's just the style of the game that it's in, just feeling great with just the D-pad.
Right.
But like you said, nowadays it's not for anything more than just cycling through menus.
Right.
But what's nice about nowadays is you can actually get controllers with the nice D-pads in them.
True, yeah, very true.
And I mean, so with everything being with everything being up to date with technology now, having the ability to play stuff like this on multiple things that are not original hardware.
Mm-hmm.
The funny thing is, yeah, some of the emulation is good, but it's not perfect.
Right. Right.
Like in this, you'll still even get like in emulating this kind of stuff, you'll still even get the weird stutter that
Yep.
you got on the NES, which is, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's funny, but you know, you having to play these games incredibly smoothly would be really nice.
Agreed. Sure.
Like, but the thing is, you saying, you know, your first kind of jump into video games is the Super Nintendo.
No, correction on that.
Oh.
It was the NES for me. It was just during the days and times of the SNES. So for me, I was always a generation behind. I caught up with the PlayStation 1, which I didn't get until 98, 99. So near the end of that generation. And then I did get a PlayStation 2 within a year of its release here stateside. And that was the only console I've ever been up to speed on, so to speak, with everybody else.
Well, I had, because I was a big Sega kid growing up,
Mm-hmm.
so, and I still have the Genesis with the Master System adapter that I had growing up, because I had a Master System growing up, too.
Right.
Fun fact about the Master System is when you don't have a game put in it, and you just turn it on, there is a game in it.
Right.
There's I forgot, it's like a snail game or something
Yeah,
like
I was
that.
trying to think of what it was called.
Yeah, there's a game in it when you turn it on without a cartridge in it. It just has it default in the console settings. But I grew up a Sega kid, so I had the Genesis, the Master System. I still have the games that I had back then because the Genesis kind of was my console of choice.
That game was called Snail Maze.
Yes. And then when you got to a certain era of Sega, you started seeing games that were for the Master System being put to the Genesis. And so you started seeing copies of like Afterburner, Shinobi, etc. For the Genesis and Sega Master System. But me growing up a video games kid, we grew up in the era, but since I kind of started with video games a bit earlier.
Yeah, we'll say I was on assignment at the time.
So I mean, I grew up when video games were thought of as a fad, it's a toy.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, as far back as I can remember, like one of my first actual video game memories was playing Bubble Bobble with my mom. And it wasn't until several decades later that I actually beat it with a friend of ours. Because with Bubble Bobble, you can't beat it one player. You have to go back and beat it with two. Because if you try and beat it with one, it basically goes, haha, just do that again, but with somebody else.
Right, exactly.
Because it's I hate that slowdown so bad.
You know what? Let me divert you real fast to a point you were making earlier about that. These things emulate even the downsides of the hardware. One thing I know exists out there, but I didn't spend a lot of time with it because it kind of didn't have a point to spend time with it by the time I got to it. Isn't there a Super Nintendo release of the 3 NES Super Mario Brothers, but
Yes.
updated.
Super Mario All-Stars.
Yes. Now, did you spend a lot of time with those? And if so, did they have the same slowdown then, or did it actually feel better?
It felt better.
Okay.
I mean, it felt better. I mean, just like re-releasing anything on newer hardware, especially with Nintendo, it was hardware that was made for Nintendo. It did feel better. Like with emulators and stuff, I appreciate, it's one of those things I appreciate the accuracy sometimes of like, oh, this is just emulating the hardware, which, okay, I got it. But at the same time, like, I kind of wish it was just all smooth.
Right.
Because especially when you get to some of these older games that implemented scrolling for the first time or whatever, like this, and it's parallax scrolling in the background, you get to the point to where it's like, yeah, it's cool, but I would love to be able to just play it and run it without the stutter.
Right. Sort of a play as intended, not necessarily as received.
Exactly. Because I'm sure that nobody that programmed this game was like, I really want to make it stutter.
Right, yeah. The slowdown really enhances this level.
And stuff like water level. Stuff like this, stuff like especially Mega Man. There's actually ways to play the game around the stutter, believe it or not.
Okay.
Trying to remember which one it is. Which ability it is that you get, but there was a one of the abilities you get from the Robot Masters is that if you stop and start the game, or pause and unpause the game, that your whatever you fired would be on the screen longer, so it would treat it as hitting the enemy multiple times.
Right. I think I remember reading about that. I've never done it myself.
Yeah, neither have I. I stopped at 4 for the NES and picked it back up. Picked it back up on the SNES with Mega Man X, which decidedly is my favorite Mega Man series.
Okay.
But yeah, there was certain things you could do that you play to the slowdown itself, which is kind of cool, but again, it's you're playing to a hardware issue. You're not playing to you're playing to a hardware issue that can also be an exploit.
Gotcha. While you run from these cheaps, I don't know how sensitive these microphones are exactly, but some of you may be hearing our third member, who there is no stopping from interrupting the show. I have a wonderful 19-and-a-half-year-old cat who is growing more ornery by the day, and so she's happily meowing at the two of us because we're talking. She figures she should speak as well. Her name is Tipper, but I don't know how that's coming through or if it's coming through. I wanted to explain that, however.
Well, I think she's contributing a great deal.
Her experience is watching many, many hours of video games, so I do think she has some knowledge to share. You know, for this game, I love this game a lot, and I always felt like these castle levels, as different as they are, were really fitting, but I have to tell you, there's one thing in a Mario game I hate, and that is, I don't think it happens on here until World 8, when you have the maze to get through.
And sorry, hitting the itch on my back there.
When you have the maze of which side you have to go up this time or down that time, I can't stand those. Those bug the crap out of me for some reason.
I forgot how to do the continue. It's been such a long time.
Oh, is there I can look it up.
Yeah, I forgot how to do the continue. There's a way you can continue. I just have not played the original Mario Brothers in such a long time.
I will look it up. this is our introductory episode to everybody. We're gonna play this game for a little bit longer. I think we're gonna split this one into 2 episodes before we move on to Super Mario Brothers 2. We do have other shows planned. It's not going to just be simple Let's Plays. There's going to be a few things I haven't seen others do. That's not to say there aren't others out there doing these things. I just haven't come across them. Because obviously, guys playing video games on YouTube isn't really original anymore.
Right.
So we're getting a wonderful start in the year 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Although this won't even be posted until 2023. But this is really meant to be more of an introduction to us, and we're hoping to build, something of a community. We don't expect internet fame by any means, but we're hoping there's some friendly internet people who can engage with us, and we hope we can give you guys plenty of entertainment along the way. One of the things you're going to notice is that, typically speaking, Rob is the one playing and I am not. There's a really weird explanation for that.
It's not weird.
You don't think that's weird?
No, the fact that you used to snicker and laugh at me playing video games.
Well, there is an entertainment aspect from my point, especially I do enjoy failure when it's not me.
Right.
But there is something else that's kind of different. As much as I love video games, the way that I got into them, they were always the thing I did when I was alone and had nothing else to do. So when I'm with other people, playing video games myself just feels awkward to me. Even though I am extremely comfortable and more than happy to sit there and, enjoy the company of somebody while they're playing a video game. So I just felt like for these purposes, it made more sense for me to be what I think of as the equivalent of color commentator, for video game.
My Johnny Carson.
Yeah, exactly. Without any of the skill or charm.
Right.
Or professionalism.
Right. I mean, if we don't lack professionalism, we can't be ourselves.
Very true.
Well, to put a bit of a background on it, of who we are, more or less. So as Brian said, we've been friends for a very long time, since 8th grade, and basically we're like, we got I guess we're gonna have to do this for our career option, because I have a CDL. I do building materials and stuff for a living, so it's not anything I wanted to be in, but being able to finally get to do this with my best friend has been something in the making for how long?
It's actually, I made the joke about how what we're doing isn't original anymore. It's worth mentioning we have been talking about this and a few other things since about 2012 is my estimate.
Yeah.
So we are not aggressive at pursuing things.
No, well, and I mean, especially when the sometimes life gets in the way becomes incredibly true.
Correct, yeah.
But one of the things that I hope to really get out of this is, I want to do those charity streams.
Yes.
Specifically, because of what's happened to me. I wanted to do those charity streams.
You know what? Let's pause here real fast, and then we'll talk about the charity streams on a next episode.
Sounds good.
Okay.